Good morning. I thought I would take a couple minutes and show how to set up a custom filter and to kind of give like like a little quick synopsis as to the idea behind it and like what I was wanting to use it for. Usually when we code something or when something's coded, we will have conditional checks. Checks to look for certain things or to test certain conditions, such as like a value, a Boolean value, whether it's true or false, a numerical value, like if you're coding a quest in, let's say, Papyrus. And but one of the things we do is we look for text in a sentence. So, like in a papyrus log, we might look for text, specific text in that papyrus log. And oftentimes when we code it, we would have to code it so that it would check this and this and this, or else this, like that, like an or statement, or an and, all of them would need to come true. So I thought, well, the easiest thing and the best thing to do, I think, to put it to give the user that agency, that ability to kind of modify their debugging environment would be to put the ability to do those conditional checks, to look for text, to give them that to open that up to give them that ability. And one of the options for that was the idea of filters. And a filter works on any list. This is a list. This is just a list box list, and it works on any list. So it would work on this list over here, and it would work on this list. And it looks at the contents of the list, is what it looks at. So so to add a filter, just to kind of show everyone how to do this. So let's bring up the filters here, and you can see the filter names. Now these names correspond to these names here. See game saves, stack dumps, SS2, SS2 compatibility. I'm gonna just slide this over here slightly out of the way here. So you can see where game saves, so I can bring this in just a little bit here. So you can see game saves here, stack dumps, and it's the order that it finds it in this file. And the last one would be the papyrus script, which I added specifically for a filter for uh for extracting text strings, to locate text strings in a papyrus file. So what the template, the coding template does is it looks for the root filter name. It's just a root name. So you see where it has filters? So all the filters that it would need to find would need to be within that filters tag. And the reason I did this is because I could have put these as the root. So I could have just put, game saves out here and stack dumps. But this allows me to use an any file for more than just filters. A filter any file could be specifically for filters that would show up in, let's say, this interface, or it would show up in, let's say, a specific filter. So for Papyrus log, I could have done something like this. I could have cut this out over here. Let's make sure you can see this. We're going to try to get this up where you can actually see it. So I think you can kind of see that. I think that's in the window. I could have cut this out. I could have went in and cut this block out, and then went over here and created another tag, another root tag, and we can call it just papyrus anything. You call it anything. You call it utility as an example. I could have posted this in here, close the tag, and then within papyrus utility, whoops, we want to make sure that ends in a thing. And then in papyrus utility, I would have looked for papyrus script. And that way I could have put a little note, here that says this is only for Papyrus utility. So that's why I basically put a root tag in there. Let's go ahead and just undo all of this. So that's why I went ahead and put a root tag of filters. And the way the system sees that is it sees it like this. And then it'll be, okay, so it sees it like this. So this is the key. So it's tag name and then a tag separator and then another tag name. This is how it indexes it. So when I go to load the Papyrus script filters for Papyrus log utility, this is the key that I give it. And the keys are built. The key table is built when the configuration file is loaded, and that's done in the utility library with load config file. So in load config file, you give it the name of the configuration, the tag, which is the key to the data elements that you want to extract or to retrieve, and then you tell it what type of elements you want to retrieve. And right now, there are really only two elements in the tag. There are tag names and there are tag items. So in this example here, filter is as a tag name. Game saves is a tag name. This is a tag item. This is an item. So if I want to retrieve, let's say, these items, then I would actually open the key or load the key, filters, # SS2 compatibility, and then I would say, I want you to get the tag items. And it loads any text that is not a tag, because tags, like, so for example, I could literally have data like this in the tag. Whoops, like, let's see this back out. I can have data in the tag, and I could have another tag in here that just says extra stuff, close the tag like this, and then I could just whatever stuff I wanted to put in here. So if I say that I want to load filters SS2 compatibility items, it's only going to give me this data because this is a tag, a separate tag, a separate entity or element within another tag or an element. It's not going to load that. So you won't see junk. You will only see this. So a tag can have data, or there could be a subtag. Consider it like a folder with files and a subfolder within that folder. So if I go in here, and in the code, in the template code, which is over in here, there is a function code that I built into the pipe that makes this very, very easy. What I do is I create a list that has the objects that I want to display in this filter form. So I have a list of filter, and it doesn't necessarily have to be filter items. This selection form is used for many different other things. It's just a very common form. It's a universal form where you give it the title of the form that represents the data that you see, and then you give it a list. And these items are defined as a menu. So one of the built-in features of the utility library, one of the features I built in, was a list, such as this list here is the same as this list. It's the exact same as this list, but the data is identified differently. There's a tag in there that says this is the type of data you're looking at. Therefore, when you click on it, you can have a selective menu for that item, or that item can act as a button. And that is what these are defined as. So whenever you click on this, it automatically generates a function event that gets thrown in that pipe. That's one of the reasons I did that central pipe. It has some pros and cons, but one of the pros is that I can literally say, I want this item to act like a menu. I'm going to build that function code that says this is the function I want to call. It's filter the items, and this is the filter that I want to use. And then, of course, in that function call, in the actual function call in the code, it looks up. It knows that the filters, the text that you want to filter out, it knows that it's in that filters file. So it loads, it builds that key up to say filters as the root tag #, then whatever you pass to it. So if I click on one of these, that is passed as a parameter. The text in this list, whatever I click on, is passed as a parameter to that function call. So then the function call gets it and says, "Oh, you want me to filter out text." So it knows that knows the file that has the filter, the text in it. Those are filters, just the text strings. It knows where that is, but it doesn't know which group, which one of these over here, these groups. It doesn't know which one of these you want to load, and that's what's passed. So if I was to click on compatibility here, it would say, I want you to load filters, # compatibility, and then it loads the items. Remember, if there's any tags in here, it's not going to load the tags. It's only going to load the items. And you can literally have, just to kind of throw this in here, whoops, not that, let's go up here. You can have this type of situation here. You can have just any tag name, and then you can have stuff in it, right? I always hit the wrong one to close the tag. All right, so you can have this, but you can also have another filter, filter 1, filter 2. So when it loads this tag, it will bypass this, but it will pick up this block and this block. So it's pretty free flowing like that. All the items in the tag, it picks up. Okay. So that's how that works. So in a way, it's the code simply needs a method to extract these text strings. So let's say we were going to add a brand new filter. We would want to make sure that it stays within this root filter because that's the root it looks for. And, that's the filters # and then whatever the filter name is. So if we want to add, let's say, another filter down here. So let's just call it papyrus anything. I'm not really sure. I haven't done a lot of papyrus work yet, so I'm not really sure what to look for. But let's say we were looking for, let's go take a look over here and see what we have. Let's pull this out of the way. Let's say we have, as an example, we have, I think it's null pointer, I think was one, or quest script. I forget what they are. Trying to find something that would be not really too overwhelming, but just something we could, it's property. Which one is this? All right, let's say available condition 2. We're just going to grab anything. Let's just see where it says available condition 2. We'll just pick that one. So we want to create it. Now, see, this is our filter list here, right? So we want to add a brand new filter. So we're going to call it papyrus check, and we want available condition. And then you just close it. You need to close the tag. Okay, so now you have papyrus check. We've just added this. You don't have to do any, these are comments. Anything that starts with a semicolon is a comment. You don't have to add that. I just do it to kind of keep things separate because I like to, when I look at something, I like to be able to look at it. It gives me a little bit of context as to what I'm looking at. And then everything is in little digestible bits. So I'm not looking at a massive amount of data. My brain can actually break it down into small chunks, and then I can focus on that chunk. Okay, so we have the papyrus check and available condition. So, and now the standalone, we're going to pull this aside here. Now the standalone applications, and we saved it. So the standalone applications do not automatically reload. So it's not going to automatically update this. So let's close it. Let's go back in because we updated the filters file. Let's open it back up. And now you can see at the bottom, there is papyrus check because that's the name. So instead of showing filters # papyrus check, it just shows papyrus check. And when you click this, what it does is this is where it filters the text, and you can see the available check. These are all, let's pull this in where you can see it. So that's what popped up. You can see the available check. So what that function does in the pipeline, in the pipe, it's a programmable function. All you do is it just says, okay, it knows that the filter option, the option to filter here, it knows that it come from this list. This is because it keeps track of things like that. That was part of the interesting thing about coding it. I had to keep all that in the pipe. It has to be in the pipeline. In the whole data flow pipeline, it needs to keep track of what triggered this, what was the sender or what's the receiver of this information. So this particular, and this form is, like I was saying earlier, this form is common. It's something that can be used over and over again. You just say, this is the list of items I want you to show. This is the function code, like whether it's opcode 90, 15, whichever function you want to call. I'm going to pass this list. I'm going to pass to this function that generates this form, this selection form. So I call it a selection form. You need a list of items and the target operation code for these items, because these items are always going to be, when you click on them, when you click on this, it's going to say you're treating it like a menu item. So I'm going to automatically generate a function call. I'm going to drop it in that pipe. I'm going to queue it up, and then the queue's constantly looking and polling and says, "Oh, I got something," and here you go. And that's really how that works. It's fairly simple. It can be complicated to mess with, but as far as like being able to put new things in there, it's pretty simple to do. And then the reason I did and you can filter this if you want. You can turn around, every list you can filter. You can just keep filtering every single one. I can filter this. It's a common function for all lists, and everything you see is a list. Everything you see, I can even filter this one item list. It does it. It has no idea. It doesn't care. It's like, oh, you give me a list. I can get every item in that list, and what I mean by list is it's what you're seeing on the screen. It's actually what you're seeing up here, and that's pretty much how that works. So, looks like there's nothing, couldn't find anything there. Let's see, let's go back over to here and grab that. There we go. So, as I don't have SS2 running in this particular game, in my particular Papyrus script. And that's kind of like how you do it. And you can add as many of these as you want. It'll give you an auto scroll bar when it has more. You could organize these. One of the things I didn't do, and now that I think about it, I might go ahead and do it, is I might put some header items up here. I haven't, because I kind of threw this together one day. I'm like, oh, this would be a really cool thing to do, because I'm thinking, oh, I can click on items, treat them as a menu item. So let me go ahead and just create this thing, because that way I don't keep reinventing the wheel. I just build that little function code and throw it off, and it's the same process. So once I code that process, I never have to visit it again. And I use this for, at least I use this to load languages, to load export formats, import formats. I use it a lot for, it's the same exact process. But maybe headers up here, maybe gray, because anything that has a box around is a section header, maybe just a regular header, which is gray. And it might, in other words, like a category where you can have categories, so you can easily scroll through categories, or you can have like an SS2 category, or or any other type of category that you want to have, as opposed to just a list of filters. I could actually, one of the things I could do is I could sort the filter list. I could sort this alphabetically, but I think I like the idea of category headers better. That would take just a little bit of coding to be able to, it won't take much coding, but and that way you could send it category headers. Uh like, in other words, I could put in here a category header. So in Papyrus script, I might be able to do something like uh yeah, I'm not sure about that, because this is all controlled by that load config, and the load config file doesn't really, it just cares about tags and comments. It ignores comments and just cares about tags and data. So I don't know if that would work exactly. That might take a little bit. I have to think about that one. But I think putting categories in might be a good idea to help organize that. I'm just not sure, given the structure of this file, how I could work that in, unless there was a data tag in here somehow. I'm not sure. But that's pretty much all you have to do. And if I go in and delete this and you change it, I can go in and change this. I could put if I want to put quest in here, that's just something that has the word quest in it. It should. I've updated this with Quest, so it should actually reload that filter file when it does the filtering. So it should show Quest items, and it looks like it picked up a whole lot more items. So yeah, you can see where there's Quest in there. So some things are loaded on demand, and you can literally change them like this. You can change them on the fly. Some aren't. It just depends. You'd have to kind of play around with it. Startup on these particular applications, startup any files are not reloaded when you change them. You'd have to restart the app. Where in the main application, that mod helper app, I actually check. There's a conditional check to see do I need to refresh the library? And libraries have that built in. So the let me show you here real quick. Let's say the utilities library. I think it's in, well, not regress. We want refresh library. It's built in right here. So you can see that each library, let's pull this down where you can kind of see it a little bit better. Each library here, whether it's users, games, whatever, they all have a built-in refresh option. And it will refresh, it'll look to see uh, well, okay. The main application needs to check for file changes. And there is functions built in the utility called File Watcher or just Watcher. And you just say, okay, I want to watch this folder, and then it automatically will do that for you. It adds the handlers, it creates the events, puts them in the queue for you, it puts them in that function pipe, but the function pipe needs to have a condition in there that checks a case statement that says, okay, like for example, 711, opcode 711 means file created. 712 is file changed. For folders, 721, you just add 10 to it. So 721 is folder created, 722 is folder changed. You would need to look for that and then call these functions here. You would need, let me take this out. You would need to call these particular functions refresh library so that each library can make a determination on its own if any of its configuration files have been reported as changed, because these don't check on their own, because that means you would have all these things watching these different libraries or for these different files created, and I didn't want to put that kind of overhead because sometimes it's not even necessary. Sometimes applications are not large enough or they're not really, there's no need to be, there's no need for it to look for file changes or folder changes. That's not necessary. But the main application does. For example, if I'm looking for the game folder and I look for game saves to be created. So you can specify wherever you want to check for game saves to be created, and that's how I rename them. I just look for them and rename them based on the contents of that game save. And that is parsed using the utilities library parse data file. But again, it's got a file name, but it doesn't know how to parse it. So it needs a format, and that format is defined with a text file in that formats subfolder is why you see like a formats folder. All that's defined in there, and I'll go over all that. I can cover all that stuff later when when I kind of get around to that and do more applications. But that's pretty much that's pretty much how these folders can update their own files, but they don't create their own file watcher events. That's done by the main application. And then the main application, when a file is updated, needs to call I'll show you an example here where it needs to actually call the folder. So let's go over here to this and let's do an E711. So our 712, I think, is what we want. Okay, so see where it says file change. So this is generated automatically by the utilities file watching system, by the methods that I coded in there. And here you can see where let's find out where it checks. Is it here? Let's do it like this. We want to say See if we can find it like this. Here we go. All right, so let's see, where did I put it? It is put in, oh, I guess I put it in check file extensions, which that's also called from that 712 thing. But here, this is where it's all called. So if it's in any file that changed, because what it is, I grab the file extension. So if in any file was changed, I literally go through this check. So I call the refresh library for every one of these. But if each one of these, whichever library says, "Oh yeah, that file belongs to me," then it will return true. It returns true, and it'll tell you that it refreshed it. It logs it as a message that this library was refreshed. And but otherwise, it says I couldn't refresh any, and that's how this condition will still work. So if the file that was updated belonged to the utility library, it doesn't even care to check the rest of these, and that way it'll kind of speed along its merry way. And that's in the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is going to check every single one of these and then have to go through and check because I look for any files to be certain things and contain certain kinds of data. But yeah, that pretty much covers that. So they don't automatically check for that, but yet some do. Some will actually check. And the way that I coded the configuration file method, so, if I want to load a config file, and a configuration file is basically just a text file that has tags in it. And the tags compartmentalize the data that I want to access. And what that does is it actually keeps track of a timestamp for that file. Like a timestamp, it keeps track of that. And if you go to load that data file, say you want to load, let's say I make a change to that file, and that file is already open. So if I go in and take a look to see if there's an open configuration file, it's going to say, yeah, the filter file is still open because you didn't close it. Um, but what'll happen is when it goes to load more data, when it goes to access that file again, it checks to say, okay, which file are you wanting data from? Which file, and if it's loaded in memory already, it's already there, it's already indexed. It says, okay, I've got the data here. Now let me check the timestamp. If the timestamp is the same, I'm going to give you data that I've already loaded and indexed in memory. Otherwise, I'm going to have to load that file again because the file has changed and I need access to the most recent data, whether you add or delete something. So I tried to build in as much. As I could to cover all bases without really having to worry or think about it. But again, these applications, these standalone applications here, they don't automatically check for file changes. You would need to go in and code that, or I would need to go in and put that code in. And it's really, really simple. You call a file watch on the folder that you want to watch, and it checks all subfolders within that folder. And then at that point, 711 or 712 is going to be called. And then you just put that little block in there and just do all the checks. Have each library check to see if what was updated belonged to them, and if it is, reload it. And that allows dynamically changing localizations and things like that. All right, well, I just want to kind of to cover that real quick and kind of show that, adding things like that is very, very easy. And it was just an extension. A filter file was just an extension of being able to check more for more than one text string in a list, any type of sequential list, because usually when these are loaded, they're generally loaded as an array list, just simply a list of elements in an array, and you can check each one. And there's different, without going into a whole lot of detail, there's a lot of different methods that are built in to allow you to get information from this list. You can get file links from the list. You can get the actual data. You can get data from a specific column. If you have multiple columns, if you have more than one column here like this, you could get just this list of data as opposed to this list. You can do different things. But yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. I hope that helps. And I hope that kind of gives an idea of how configuration files, these data files, are laid out and how they're loaded. And because that's the basis of the data for the whole for everything that I've done so far. That's the basis for data storage and data retrieval, is using that kind of tag system. There are other files that may be what you call a flat file, which is just a text file which has straight data in it. But in time, that I will encapsulate them in tags, and therefore I can put different types of tags in that text file, and then that way that text file has more utility than just a single data type. It can have other types of data. Like if you look at, for example, if you go over to here, let's pull this back over real quick. If you go over to here and you're looking at something like this, like let's say you're looking at the conflict utility any, see there's a tag for startup that has the startup parameters that you see when you launch it. That's the layout. That layout is really not finished. This is a layout that I've had from probably a couple years ago where I just kind of threw it together and I haven't gone back in to do it. And this just defines what it is, control name, um, where certain controls can have certain layouts. And I'm not even sure this functionality is in here yet, but I just kind of threw it in there. But that's the menu. So menus, see the menu? So that's the name of the control. That's the actual control's name. And then that's the menu. So whenever you click on home options up here, whenever you click on this right here, you can't really see the menu because it popped over this way. But what happens is it says, oh, what's the name of the button he clicked on? He clicked the button. This is the name of the button. And then it's going to give you the menu for that button. And this allowed me to put more data types in a single file. Here you have overrides. So you have style information. Style information defines the colors that you want to use for different things. It would be like a theme. It could be like a CSS, like a style sheet. You could call it that. They use very similar techniques. They just group the data differently and apply it a little bit differently. But I believe they apply it the same way. It's just through different types of methods and code. But yeah, that's what that is. So see, it allowed me to reuse that single file for more than just for one purpose. And that way, instead of having like 20 files out there, I can just have one file that has 20 different sections in it. All right, I hope that helps, and I don't want to make this video too awful long. But yeah, I'm gonna hop off here and just kind of relax on the rest of the Sunday, kind of just chill. And Monday we'll start a whole new thing here and see what kind of coding mischief, quote, that we can get into and see what kind of stuff we can come up with. Hope everybody has a great evening.